Hi, it's Joanna Hunter for a very special episode of Into the LightWeb Podcast. We are on episode 100. So if you are catching this episode, thank you for joining us in the celebrations. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different from regular episodes. We wanted to have something special for you to mark the 100th episode. Let's get into it. Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. So if you are brand new to the Into the LightWeb podcast, this is the 100th episode. And in this episode, what I wanted to do was really talk about the spirit team and collective consciousness that I channel called Skylar. So if anybody's sitting here listening to this for the first time and wondering who is Skylar, Skylar is a collective consciousness of many beings together in something called coalescence, and I'll get into that in just a moment. And what Skylar are, they number the million. So it's like millions of souls operating as one soul. And they communicate through a channel, like an energy channel. So I've always kind of had that awareness of spirit. I've always had that awareness of a world beyond our physical world, if you like. And so growing up with that was really character building. But anytime that I felt really like difficulty in the outside world, or a lot of people thought when I was younger that I was like quite weird. And when I was young, I was like really super energetic, super creative. And I was a lot for a lot of people. And when I would feel that as a child, then one of the things that I would do is, speak with my spirit team. And they were always this constant source of grace for me. And then as I got older, I really tried to squish down all of my spiritual gifts. So I tried like really hard to be normal. And that didn't work out that great for me, because by 9 I'd managed to squish down a lot of the gifts. By sort of 10, 11, 12. But by sort of 13, 14, 15, it was like a champagne bottle that had been shook. And around about 15, the cork popped off and my spiritual gifts went literally haywire. I would experience things like day-long deja vu. I would experience things like just knowing what strangers were going to say next. Like I'd seen that before and I knew what they were going to say next. I would experience prophecies, so just knowings. And so how do you describe a knowing to maybe somebody who's not most of us know that the grass is green and the sky is blue. Like it's just facts, right? And we can feel that inside. Like when we think about that, it feels like such a solid thing. Like the grass is green, the sky is blue. It's just the way it is. Clouds are white, And so and knowing works on the same sort of vibration and frequency of that. So when you're feeling that, that knowing, it's like that. So I would have information that I would just simply know. And so that went on quite a lot. And it went on until I got to the age of 23. And at that point in time, my spiritual gifts were something that I was kind of just starting to use, but it was more like an inconvenience. It would just come out at odd times, and I would just like get information at odd places and odd times and things. I developed a love of tarot from the age of 15, and I began to read tarot cards and oracle cards. And I now have a giant collection of tarot and oracle cards, and I love cartomancy, which is basically the ability to read cards. And so I love that. I love that spiritual tool because it was a tool that gave me a lot of comfort. And then at 23, I joined a spiritualist church. I was introduced to the spiritualist church. I'm not a churchy person. I'd already been chucked out of regular church because of my gifts. So I'd been asked to leave Sunday school when I was 6 because I gave the priest messages from his passed over mother. So that, you know, my first kind of foray into any type of religion and things like that was met with, do you not bring your child back? And that was, and it wasn't, and one of the things that I didn't really like about organized religion, and this was for me personally, because if it floats your boat, go with it. But I just didn't like there was just this inability to ask questions, because it was always met with, well, it's like that because it's like that. There was no discourse, no discussion. It was just like, whatever is in the Bible is law. And, you know, and that didn't sit right with me because, you know, the book has been translated so many times and there's been so many iterations, and then it's, you know, it went from, in the 14th century it was 56 gospels and now it's 28, and so there's a lot. So when I joined the spiritualist church, honestly, I had no expectations at all whatsoever. I didn't think I would like it. I didn't think I would enjoy it at all. My stance has always been that I didn't really like any type of organized religion. But what I found for myself in the spiritualist church was this really beautiful collection of incredible humans and amazing people that all had similar gifts to me, and that was really, really comforting. And the other thing that was really comforting in the spiritualist church was nobody had to give up any other religion. So, you know, you could be sat in a spiritualist church and next to you could be an atheist, and next to that person could be a Buddhist, and next to that person could be somebody who practices Islam or Christianity or Catholicism or something like that. And I really loved that, because that for me sat much more right with me, and it was definitely that just sat like way more right with me, of knowing that was what I was. I just felt like, yeah, it was more accepting of everybody. And I just thought, you know, I really believe that if there is a divine force in this world, then I don't really believe that divine force could have made such perfection around us, of like the world that we live in, all of the trees and the plants and the animals and all of the things that are here, and then, you know, somehow made humans wrong. I don't see that. I see the perfection in human beings too. And that means that however your traits and however you are and your uniqueness and the quirks that make you you are important. They are a way to exalt the divine, by fully allowing yourself to be yourself. And so it wasn't until 2006 when I began teaching the law of attraction. And I had an amazing Ayurvedic doctor, and I had just learned about the law of attraction, and I'd been started to really, really study it, and I'd had an appointment with him, and he was asking me what was happening in my world, and I was telling him about, I'd learned this thing called the law of attraction, and it was literally lighting me on fire, and it was incredible, and it was changing my life, and I was really excited about it. And he looked at me very earnestly and he said, Joanna, if you really, really want to know a subject, you teach it. And I think that was all the permission I needed to go out there and start sharing about it. And I thought, you know, do I need to be an expert in this? And I thought, no, because all I'm doing is sharing something I'm passionate about. And I had a load of books that I really, really loved, and I bought them all in Borders bookshops. So I left that appointment and my husband was driving me, and I made him drive me up to Borders bookshops. And I strolled in to the bookshop, and I went up to the front counter and I said I'd like to speak to the manager. And of course, the assistant always thinks it's bad, right? So she did that kind of face where it looks like she sucked a lemon, you know? And I said, and she went and got the manager. And I introduced myself and I said, hey, I'd love to come to your store and speak about the law of attraction. And on the back of like a really grotty envelope on the way. So it was like sitting in the car writing, and you can imagine what the state of this list was. But I handed him this like envelope list that was written on a list. And like I said, these are the titles that I can promote for you and talk about. So make sure you have them in stock and I will make sure that you get lots of sales on those. And I said, and I'll be back in tomorrow with posters if that's okay. And I think he was just kind of shell shocked, and I kind of like didn't really give him a choice to say no. So he was like, ah, okay. And then the next day I showed up with posters. And I think when I showed up with posters, I had them done like really professionally. And I think when I showed up with the posters, he looked quite relieved. And I think he was like, oh, she's not a total mad woman. So a couple of weeks later, I was in Borders bookshops giving my first talk on the law of attraction. And it started off really, really well. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I had 25 people showed up. And I began sharing just my passion for the law of attraction and what I'd learned. And then at the end, I opened up Q&A, and I love interacting with an audience. I love Q&A. I'm never worried about what people ask, because like, what's the worst that can happen? They ask you something that you don't know. And then you just have to admit, like, I don't know that, but let's find out, you know? And so I really enjoyed that aspect. So I opened up the questions, and the first few questions went great. And then it was about maybe like question 3 or 4. Somebody asked a question, and I remember thinking in my head, I do not know the answer to this. Like, I have no idea what the answer is to this. And I was just about to say that, and I opened my mouth to say it, and the most sublime, incredible answer came out of my mouth. And I was like, nobody was more shocked than me. So I was like, so I looked around the audience like really, really quickly, and I was like, did I just get away with that? And the person who had given the answer to was like literally sitting dry in their eyes. They had been so moved, so emotionally by the answer, and they were just like, oh my God, of course. And it had made so much sense. And I had like literally spoken directly to that person's soul. And I was like, wow, this is kind of freaky. So I got a couple of more questions I didn't know. And again, the answers just flowed out my mouth. And that was the first time that I became aware that I was literally channeling my spirit team. And you know, channeling this other information from somewhere else, and it was coming through me, and I was literally channeling. So as I left the bookshop that night, and it had been great. I mean, it was supposed to be an hour talk, and we'd been there for 2 hours, and we'd sold a ton of books for Borders, which was brilliant. And you know, and I went out and I was really excited that we had done it, and I had felt so good, and I had loved the Q&A session, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I just literally left that building walking on clouds. And the manager runs after me as I walk out the building, and he hands me a £50 gift card. And I just remember at that time I felt like I'd won the lottery, because I've always been obsessed with books and card decks, and you know, I read a lot. And so to be given a £50 gift card was like, for a bookshop, I was like, oh my God, this was amazing. So I was delighted and over the moon. So then as I left the Borders, as I left, I said, well, I can come back and do another one if you want. I'll be back in with posters. So a couple of days later, I dropped in a new set of posters. And this time 75 people showed up for the event. And And again, I began just sharing about the law of attraction, and I began just sharing about how you could manifest anything that you wanted. And I just began talking about how you could begin to direct and order the universal energies and how you can harness them to your own benefit. And the same thing happened again when I began a Q&A session. People asked me questions, I wasn't 100% clear on the answers, and these sublime, incredible answers just flowed out of my mouth. There wasn't anything that I couldn't answer, and it was just coming and it was just flowing through me. And as I began really, and at that point I started to really understand that this was an aspect of mediumship. And since I'd always been a medium, that this was coming as an aspect of mediumship. And I felt totally safe in like giving those answers, like I wasn't, because they were coming through me and they made so much sense. And they were, the feeling inside was just one of pure love. And the audience, the reaction of the audience was just incredible. People were crying and moved to tears, and they were emotional. And and that is the power of spirit. That is the power of the divine energy. When you are in proximity to divine energy, it moves you emotionally. It is the light of the creative powers of the universe, and that light, the light inside you, recognizes itself, and it feels like coming home. And that's what the second time, that's what people said to me, was that it was like a homecoming. And my brother was at that event, and he said in the car on the way home that night, he was like, I cannot believe your knowledge on this subject. It's incredible. And I think that was like when I first sort of confessed that, well, I don't think it's all mine. I think it's coming through me. I've certainly read a lot about it. I've certainly done a lot of research, sat in a lot of classes by that point, but it was really coming through me. And it was as though my soul recognized this, and it didn't feel like it was the first time that I was teaching this. I felt like it's something from a past life that I'd been teaching for many, many millennia. And so as I began to do that, and at first I called my spirit team the transition team, and I saw our mission very clearly. And our mission was to transition people from an asleep state of being into an awakened state of being, of where they were living their life with purpose and intention, whereas perhaps before they'd been living their lives on default, just accepting what the universe was giving them, just accepting what was coming in. And in the few years that kind of passed after, I did the final one in Borders Bookshops, the numbers got so big. I think we had over like 125, nearly 130 people there. And the manager said, we're not coded, fire coded for more people. Like, it really, we have to limit this, because it is, if you do another one, it's going to just gain in popularity so much. So I was, but I think it had served its purpose. I went there 3 times, and it was just to show me, to make that connection with my spirit team in the way that I did, and to show me that they could work through me in this way. And then I had my during that sort of time, I was going through, I had just gone through like a really big burnout and things. So I was just really kind of finding my feet again from that. And then I came out of my shops completely and utterly, and I changed direction in my life totally and utterly. And I changed direction to basically begin to dedicate my life to spirit and teaching spiritual things. And that's what I did. And it's been a really, really epic journey. But, in this journey, and this is something I feel like so many people will face in this journey, is that it's not always an easy journey. first of all, being a medium, meaning that you can communicate with people in the spirit world, that's not always a sort of easy, like, when people, I always used to dread the question, like people used to say to me, oh, what is it that you do? And I would sort of like size them up and be like, is this somebody that's going to like be able to accept that I'm a medium, or is this somebody whose head's literally going to pop off their shoulders if they know what I do? And so there was always this thing of like being able to do it. But I think for me, one of the biggest things, and I think if you are a spiritual entrepreneur and you're listening to this and you're challenged with how do I incorporate my spiritual side into my business, what I would suggest is that just be yourself, really. And I know that that sounds like quite a lame suggestion, but it's really just be yourself. And the right people will filter in it or filter out as well, because if they're not right, they will filter out. And I stopped kind of really caring so much what other people thought about me, and if they judged me, then I just knew that I wasn't here for those folk. And if they were judging me as well, I would be safe in the knowledge to know that I had planted a seed for that person, and that sometimes seeds take many, many, many years to mature. But if I pretended that I didn't have the spiritual side to make another human being more comfortable, and to fit their idea of the world, I was doing not only myself a disservice, but I was doing that other human being a disservice as well. And I think for me, it was learning to kind of really take ownership of my woo and beginning to like really, really own, this is who I am. And I've always been like kind of super weird. And I've always had an awareness of spirit, and I've always had these extras, if you like. And that the more that I've taken ownership of them, not only have I felt so much better about myself, but also as well, I feel like I've helped so many other people take ownership of their gifts and their stuff as well, and be able to step into that and own that, and things. So I began developing the trance mediumship aspect of being a channel. And there's a lot of channels now out there who are channeling and things. But one of the things is that the way that the consciousness has risen so quickly on this planet, a lot of people who are channels, I had a conversation once with a woman who basically said to me, oh, I'm a channel. So I said, oh, so you're a medium? And she went, no, 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 no. And I said, I was kind of like, you kind of are. If you're channeling something from the spirit world, that makes you a medium. And it was, and I find that what's happening with a lot of people is that they're moving at such an accelerated rate that they're kind of missing some of the basics of like what the gift even is. And things. So I began really training trance mediumship and working in sort of trance channel and working with that. And as I did that, I began opening up more and more and building the confidence and the bridge, because basically as a medium, that is what you are. You are a bridge between this world and the spirit world. And that bridge requires a lot of self-trust, and it requires a lot of trust in the spirit world and who you are working with in the spirit world as well. And so working in that way and beginning to step in deeper and deeper into the ownership of what it is that I'm here to do. And as I began doing that in 2015, I moved my entire business online. And in moving my entire business online, and in effect starting from scratch when I moved online, because when I first moved online, I had like 0 customers, 0 everything again. And I had done a very hard like cut off. So I had set a date, and the date was the 31st of December 2014. That was the last time that you could kind of book me in person at that point in time. And then from the 1st of January, the only way that you could book me was online. And I felt really, really called. It was a calling to move online. And I knew deep down in my soul that it was the right thing to do, but it did not stop it from being like mega, 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 super, super scary. And we moved the business online, and in effect started from scratch again. And within 6 years, I built $1 million business using my spiritual gifts, and I began channeling incredible things coming through, which now are an entire divine feminine mystery school. And it centers around, it's all coming from a non-spiritual document called the Codex of Light. The Codex of Light is why I channel Skylar. Skylar are tasked with basically taking that non-spiritual, non-physical document, and it is a spiritual document, and channeling it to me, and so that I can bring those teachings in. The Codex of Light was written by Thoth, or Thoth is known by many names. So he's known as the Egyptian god Thoth, or the Greek god Hermes, but also known as the Archangel Metronon, and also as the biblical prophet Enoch. They're all the same person. And so with that, I began channeling the Codex of Light and the teachings. And the first thing, and it became a dialogue between me and the divine. And the first question that I had for the divine was, at the time I found myself in the feast and famine cycle. So I was always in the feast and famine cycle. And so I had two questions, because moving, having built 4 6-figure businesses, moving online, I thought I got this, no problem. And it turned out those skills, some of those skills transferred really, really well from the offline world of building businesses. Some skills did not. And so it was very frustrating in the beginning, because not only did I know that I had a good business head on my shoulders, but really trying to leverage online, and it really just wasn't happening. And I've been able to leverage offline very efficiently, very easily, very quickly. And so I was really kind of like, what gives? And so I had 2 questions for Spirit. And the first question was, how do I make money online? And how do I break the feast and famine cycle? And those were my 2 questions. And the answer came in the form of my Divine Planning Abundant Profits Academy. And the Divine Planning Abundant Profits Academy, that core program it's now in a multi-course academy, but when it first arrived, it was like a 4-week process, and it arrived whole, complete. It was like 1 minute I did not know that, and then the next minute I knew it. And it came as a download. And the download was incredible, because I'd been in business for such a long time. I took one look at it and I knew that was it. That was how I would make money online, and that's how I would break the feast and famine cycle. I knew it was the answer. I knew that it was the answer for those 2 questions. And my mum's an accountant to trade, so I actually showed her the whole process after getting the download, and she was there while I got the download, and I took 2 hours just to write it all down. And I showed my mom and talked her through. There was like 4 plans, and I talked her through the 4 plans, and she's like, absolutely, of course this will work. And she could see the potential as well, and just see that how simple and effortless it was, and how a lot easier it was than trying to always sit in front of the computer wondering, what do we do today? There was just this very clear plan of, here's how we execute and generate revenue. And that was amazing. And I applied it to my business. In the February, that's when the download came. I applied it to my business in the March. In March was the last time of 2016, and the last time I was ever in the feast and famine cycle. From that point onwards, it has been feast every single month since. Then I had a huge dilemma. In April, I I had a massive dilemma because I was teaching this system to my VIP one-to-one clients, and with great effect. And they were starting to get really good results. But I knew that the system could build a six-figure business, and my online business at that time wasn't six figures. And I really battled with my own ego of like, well, how can I present this course and be in integrity that this course can literally help you make six figures? And how can I sell that to someone knowing I have not done it myself? And it didn't sit right with me. And but I knew that the information was so good. And eventually what Skylar said to me is that, are you willing to be a self-fulfilling prophecy? And I got a whole download about being a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I thought, yeah. And I thought, well, what if this is the thing that helps me to get to six figures? And, you know, and I'm not willing to put it out, which means we don't fulfill that prophecy. And so I realized that I could tell people and be really upfront and say, we're going to do this together. We're going to create six-figure businesses together. We're going to do this together, and I will help you. And that's what we did. So the first cohort of Divine Planning Abundant Profits was just 4 students. And they jumped in, and it was the first time that I'd ever sold a program for, I think the first price was like $497 at the time. And it was the first time I'd ever sold anything at that price. And it was amazing. And I loved it. And we taught it over 4 weeks, and we dived in, and it was incredible. Then the next piece of the Codex of Light teachings came through in 2017. I began with, I knew that it was sitting on the periphery of my consciousness. I knew that it was just sitting right there. And I thought, you know, there was something really big and needs. Sometimes when we are downloading things, if we don't have the container to hold what Spirit's trying to download to us, Spirit can't really download it to you because you don't have the container. And this is something that happens a lot. Like, people are wanting to earn more money, or they're wanting to have more things, or they're wanting to have something more. But the truth is that they don't actually have the capacity to hold it. It isn't that Spirit is withholding it from them, or Spirit is literally not able to deliver it because there is no container to catch the experience. And so I already knew that teachings from my Spirit team of like, you need to make the space. And this is why decluttering is so effective if you are trying to manifest. This is why decluttering is symbolically showing the universe you're making space for your new manifestations. So I knew I needed to create a container to catch whatever this huge thing was, because it was massive. So I started my very first mastermind. And I sold out that mastermind. It sold out ridiculously fast. I think it was like sold out in a week. And it was the first time I'd ever run a mastermind. And I sold out really quickly. And I had 6 incredible women that came on the journey with me on that. And it was called Be Magic, the mastermind. And the premise of the mastermind was that you were to set a goal so big, so large, that if you achieved it, you would know without a shadow of a doubt that the universe had your back. And I loved this idea of doing something like that. And I basically taught them manifestation principles, but I also taught them like of how to let go, because that's one of the most important steps in manifestation, is the letting go. And most people's manifestations are not coming because of 2 reasons. Reason 1 is that they are not good at receiving. So that's one of the top reasons. And then reason 2 is that they don't have the capacity to receive what it is that they're trying to receive, or they haven't let go of the need for the thing. So they're holding on to the need, and the need is filling the space that the actual having of the thing would fill. So the space is already occupied within their energy field. So I taught these women these principles and things, and they had some miraculous, amazing shifts. And there was one of the ladies actually went on to manifest $1 million free and clear in her bank account in 8 months. So it was insane. Some amazing results. But what that did was it pulled through the 13 B Magic insights. And the 13 B Magic insights are magical. They are absolutely incredible. And they are like a foundational piece of the Codex of Light teachings. They take a person from maybe a slightly asleep state of being, although I think by the time you get to the B Magic insights, you've started just definitely the awakening process, and move you into a completely sovereign B Magic being. And a sovereign B Magic being is somebody who is literally walks with magic. They are able to invoke magic in their life. They're able to create magical results that other people are looking at that and going, how's she doing that? What is going on there? So those 13 B Magic insights were channeled, and they were just incredible and so sublime. And then and then right at the very end of that container, the mother load arrived, and that's when I received from my spirit team Skylar and Archangel Metronon, I received the Codex of Light, the sort of one of the pinnacle teachings of that, which was LightWeb. And I was given my LightWeb activation, and I was so resistant. I was sitting meditating, and it was just an ordinary day. And I have a regular meditation practice, and I was just like literally sitting down for my regular meditation. And I got myself nice and relaxed and, kind of entered the spirit world as I normally do in my meditations. And I could feel myself literally like somebody reaching down and pulling me from my chest, like out of my physical body. And then I went through these corridors of light, and they were moving like really fast. And it was kind of like early Star Trek, like when they're at warp speed. And I was moving so fast through these corridors of light. And I was really like, kind of like, whoa. And if I looked to the side of me, I could feel my spirit team Skylar. So I knew that I was safe. And I knew that they were there with me. And that was the only thing that like stopped me from completely and utterly freaking out of what was going on, because it was normally, spirit, if they do anything, they give me warning. But this time it was almost like it felt like without warning. And it was just really intense. And then I was kind of out somewhere deep in the galaxy. And I was very resistant to anything like ET or extraterrestrial or anything like that. And so I stood there, and I was cringing so hard, because I was like, do not look to the sides, because I knew if I turned my head and like looked to either side, that I would see like things not off this world. And I was just like praying to myself. I was like, no alien shit. And and then Archangel Metronon asked me if I was ready, and did I accept? And I said, accept what? And you said, you agreed to this before you came here, and are you ready? And I said, okay. And then I felt myself being blasted with the most intense light. And as that light blasted me, it felt like it destroyed me completely and utterly. I felt like I became undone, and who I was and every molecule of what I was completely obliterated. And after a very intense period of where I was like, oh my God, I'm just not going to exist after this. And I just kept thinking, oh my goodness. And then I was like, just breathe. And I kept sort of looking over to one side, and I could feel the presence of Skylar there. And it just made me calm. And then once that light stopped, another light began, and it was just like rebuilding me. And it rebuilt me in the image of light. And I just felt so different from that point onwards. And then, and I was kind of like a mix of shock and awe and like, what is going on, and and things. And then Archangel Metronome said, we want you to teach this to the peoples of Earth. And I thought, I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what just happened. And then I could feel myself being pulled back into my body, and I came back into my body. And after that meditation, I opened my eyes, and everything looked different. Everything looked different. Everything was somehow like had been turned up from like regular television to like HD. Everything, colors were brighter, everything looked brighter, everything just looked so different. And I had many conversations about LightWeb with Skylar, and in the end I said, well, I can't teach this to people because I understand it now, and I could feel it working in me and coursing in me. And I thought, I have a lot of, I've a lot of metaphysical study behind me. And I thought, I can't unleash something like LightWeb on the population unless they have the tools to actually handle what LightWeb really is, and that they can use it as a positive tool, because it can equally, for every energy, there's an equal and opposite energy. And so I thought, right, okay, what do I need to do here? And I said to them, you're gonna have to start this. You're gonna have to give me something that will make sense for the human being. And and we'll do the LightWeb activation, but there has to be a piece that will allow the human being and the mind of the human to catch up. And that's when they gave me the 333 magic framework. And the 333 magic framework is 3 insights for your soul, 3 concepts for your mind, and 3 steps for your physical body. And those help you to step into what we call unity consciousness. So unity consciousness is self, soul, service, and source, all in alignment within one being. And that was so fundamental and so key. And then I felt confident. Okay, now I can LightWeb activate people, and I can teach them this framework, which will allow them to wield the tool of LightWeb, and will allow them to use the higher consciousness of LightWeb to begin that process. So I began the process of LightWeb and began to create this higher consciousness. So I began teaching people LightWeb, and the first round of LightWeb, I had over 20 students just said yes. And it was really, really incredible. And actually, I just remembered at that point in time, I didn't really call Skylar by their name, Skylar, because they hadn't given to me at that point in time. But I could feel them there. They were there when I was receiving my LightWeb activation. But it wasn't until about a couple of minutes before I went to do this live stream to talk about LightWeb for the first time. And I was just really excited about it, like super excited about it. And I was like, and that was just such a hot mess. Like that live stream was such a hot mess. It was just like, I don't even know what this is. And I was all like, I was just so excited. And immediately almost like 20 people just was like, yes, I don't know what this is. I don't know what the hell, but like, I know I need to do this. And it was just like, I know I need to do this. And so we had 20 students for that first LightWeb activation. And the students who went through LightWeb for the first time, they were like, holy moly, this is a before and after situation. And people would begin talking about LightWeb like a before and after. They were like, I thought this way before LightWeb, but now I think this way after LightWeb. And the inner peace that it was giving my students was just something to behold. You know, people who had been in deep conflict, maybe with family members and things like that, or could never go to like family occasions without coming back and feeling terrible or feeling really, really bummed and things, you know, they were literally surfing those situations and like not getting sucked in and not getting, like, it wasn't affecting their inner peace anymore. They were just being able to like see the situation for what it was. People that used to be like really, really triggered all the time, like, you know, people like their husbands or their wives or their partners, you know, triggering them very easily and things like that, and going from, you know, maybe being triggered multiple times a day to it was really difficult to start to actually trigger these students. You know, they'd healed to such a point that it was like, yeah, I'm just not going to get bent out of shape over that. And then the ability to see their life from a higher perspective, to see the meaning in maybe things that have been very difficult or very traumatic for them that they have gone through, and be able to see that from soul perspective and be like, okay, I realized I went through that really, really horrible thing, would not want my human to go through that thing again, but I can also see the benefits of my human having gone through that, and I can see how that's grown me, and I have these things because of that, and be able to see the perspective. And so LightWeb is an extraordinary program, and you know, and so far we've together with my LightWeb priestesses, we have at this point in time brought over 300 people into the LightWeb. And the LightWeb is a soul-based technology. It's activated by your soul, and it is your connection to a larger cosmic family and a larger cosmos. And yes, there is alien stuff. As much as I try to resist it, I've now realized that we are part of a much, much larger galactic family. And that isn't just us here in the universe, of course, because that's ridiculous to think that when 1 in 3 stars has habitable planets, you know, is the estimation that if you look in the night sky and you count 1, 2, 3, that third star is possibility that it has a habitable planet, and every single third star has a habitable planet. So to think that we are alone in the universe is a bit ridiculous, to be honest. So yeah, so then that brought that through. During this time, my life, my business was changing massively. And I was on this journey that I call Be Your Own Rescue, of really learning to stand on my own 2 feet, of really learning to step into my sovereignty, of really learning to wield the energy of the universe in my favor, and not need outside sources to be the, you know, looking always for rescue, looking for something to save us in a way. And as I began to work with that, I came to the end of what I call the Be Your Own Rescue journey, and realizing that I had created financial freedom for me and my family, and realizing that not only had I created financial freedom for me and my family, but it was a duplicatable process that I could teach to others. And that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years, is just teaching that process to everybody else. And through the teachings of the Codex of Light, the Be Magic work, which is the fundamental basics of it, and then bringing them into unity consciousness, unity of the self, unity of the soul, unity of their service. That's your gift to the world, like what you would get excited about, what you want to talk about, and bringing that out into the world. And in service, we are served. So as we serve others, we are served in return. And that's how we enter into an energy that Skylar talks about called the Great Exchange. And that's how you can create soul-aligned money, and create wealth and abundance for yourself. And the abundance of what you're willing to share with the world, there is abundance that is returned to you that you can use for your physical life. And then unity of source, really being, you know, unifying yourself with source energy, seeing source as the source of everything, and that allowing yourself to move into like holy unity with source energy. And so over the years, over the last 8 years, I have downloaded all of my main programs. So my main teachings are Unity, that covers the self. Be Your Own Rescue is all about the soul, and it brings in aspects of the soul, which, believe it or not, are money and self-leadership, being soul-led, and money is an extension of your soul. So your abundance, your physical abundance in your world can be an extension of your soul. Your soul is naturally abundant. And if you bring that soul into the physical world, you can turn your physical world into natural abundance as well. Service, that's your gifts to give to the world, what you want to give, what you want to be in. And then finally the source. So the service is Divine Planning Abundant Profits program that I have in my world. And then the final program that I have is LightWeb, which is the overarching, which is also source, and it's a deep source connection with LightWeb. It really, so many people have said it's the empowerment program, and somebody else will come along and receive their LightWeb activation and be like, no, it's the intuition program. Like, it made me so intuitive. And then other people are like, no, what are you talking about? It's like the manifestation program. Like it helped me, like my manifestation game is like so massive now. And then other people are like, no, it's like the program that heals all your relationships. And it's because LightWeb is source. LightWeb heals what needs to be healed inside your body, and it gives you the avenues and the tools to begin walking that journey of healing, and healing totally and utterly, moving into your source connection. And so, so it has been a massive journey, and here we are at episode 100 of my podcast. And if I could give you, instead of giving you like 100 tips, because we'll be here all day, but if I could give you a few tips, the first one I think is absolutely self-love will solve 99.99% of your problems. Whatever it is that you're going through, your own self-love and acceptance will definitely be something that will 100% help you. And so cultivating the energy of self-love is really, really important. What else would I recommend? I recommend through self-love, learning to be true to one's own self. The reason a lot of entrepreneurs are failing in their business is that they're not being true to themselves. So one of the rules that we have in Divine Planning Abundant Profits, or one of the guidelines that we have in Divine Planning Abundant Profits, is only do what really resonates with you. And that is actually, believe it or not, one of Divine Planning Abundant Profits' most hardest concepts for my students to wrap their head around, because they're looking for a strategy, and what on some level they're actually looking for rescue. They're looking for someone else to say, this is what you do, this is how this is how you will save yourself. But the thing is that that's outsourcing your energy field, and you don't gain power in your energy field until you insource your energy field. So insourcing your energy field is about being in integrity with yourself. And the only person that can tell that for sure is you. You're the only one that can tell that for sure. So really leaning into, like, does this feel good for me? Will I enjoy doing this? Yes or no? That's how you insource. So being true to yourself is so important, because the moment we move out of truth with ourselves is the moment we start self-sabotaging or affecting our results and things. And then on top of that, being true to oneself bounces right back to self-love, because you can be true to yourself, but if you feel yourself unworthy or feel yourself that you're not deserving, and that is your current truth about yourself, that you're holding yourself about yourself, then what happens is, even if you're being true to yourself and doing things that are in alignment, this is why alignment sometimes doesn't work for people, because they'll do a thing that is in alignment with them, but then they don't believe on another energetic level, they don't believe that they deserve the results. Well, then the results won't show up, because they are blocking them by believing So, this is why law of attraction work for some students can get really, really frustrating for them. And and this is one of the things that we really, really unpack in our world is, when it's not working, what's going on there in the energetics, what's going on in the metaphysics, because a lot of the time it's just simply the energy is off. And the reason the energy is off is maybe because we don't feel like we really on some level deserve that result or whatever it is. So it is beautiful work and healing work and going into deep healing work. And now one of the things that I've been able to add into all of my courses is the healing work in the Akashic Records, the Lightbringer certification, where we teach the LightWeb healing tools and bring in more of the LightWeb and bring in the practitioner level of LightWeb. And then the LightWeb Priestess, where we bring in the teacher level of LightWeb. And it is a really powerful tool for people to use in their life and in their business. And, it really, really expands a spiritual entrepreneur's consciousness. And then a year ago, I began offering people the opportunity to, or a couple of years ago now, actually, I began offering people the opportunity to walk with me for an entire year and to learn all of the Codex of Light teachings, and to learn all of it all in one go and begin to really, really step in and take full ownership of their own vibration, of their own frequency, and to step into deep unity consciousness with themselves, which is more fulfillment, more inner peace, more abundance, more joy, more happiness for an individual human being. Because what we're working with in essence is that person's energy, and we're helping them to heal. The thing is that the gurus and the sages have been saying it for years and years and years. It's already yours. It's already all yours. Well, if it's not showing up in your physical world, it's still already yours in the non-physical world. But how can we get it to show up in your physical world? Well, we need to heal. We need to heal to get the results. It's through healing that we receive the results. We heal the part of us that believes that we're not worthy, or believes that we're not deserving, or believes some crap that somebody else told us one day. And we took that on and took that mantle of that, horrible statement somebody else said to us, and then believed that somehow that affected our deservability and our deserving. And so one of the things that I love about this work is the ability to step more deeply into that worthiness, that wholeness, and that completeness. And that's what Be Magic, Codex of Light, and Unity Consciousness, all of those teachings help a human being on that pathway. And we've broken it down and laid it all out for you in frameworks and made it as easy as humanly possible to make that transition from living a life on autopilot to living a life that is full of fulfillment, inner peace, joy, and abundance, and working on every single level, because you deserve to have a life that works on every level. You deserve to have a business that works on every level. You deserve to be able to have options and choices in this life. When we're in lack consciousness, our choice is limited. When we're in abundance consciousness, our choice is limitless. And that's my mission in this world, is to get as many spiritually called humans as humanly possible into abundance consciousness, into their own abundance, into the flow of the universe, into having the key card for the storehouse of source. That is the mission of myself, my spirit team, and my human team of Team Hunter here at Joanna Hunter HQ. So I hope that you have enjoyed this 100th episode of my podcast, and I will catch you in another episode.